Welcome to the Sewcial Hour podcast, a podcast for sewists by sewists. I'm your host, Audra.
And I'm your host, Bethany, and today we're talking about my favorite thing, sewing machines. We could talk about sewing machines all day, so buckle up because this is going to be a jam-packed, info-filled podcast that we're going to try to get to and it not be 3 hours long.
Yeah, we're going to keep it really to the highlights of sewing machines and what to look for, because ultimately brand loyalty is fierce in the sewing community. So we're not touching brands because ultimately it's what works for you, and everybody feels super loyal to their specific brands. So we're not going to go there because we don't want to upset anybody.
I would say I'm probably the least loyal person to brands in the sense of I have a lot of different brands. I would say I'm a little more open to exploring what works best for you. Having worked with several brands in the industry, they're all great. You have to figure out what works best for you, but what also fits in your budget and what checks all the boxes. So today we're really kind of going through some of those things that you might want to consider when going through and deciding what your boxes are that you need in a machine based on the type of sewing you're doing. And we'll kind of go through what some of the options are out there and give you a lot of information. So this is great for a beginner who's just getting into it. Maybe you got a hand-me-down and you're trying to decide, am I ready to upgrade to something new? And maybe you've been in the sewing world for a long time and you're ready to expand into a new type of sewing. All of this is going to be very helpful for you today. But before we dive into that, let's kick off with our icebreaker. Our icebreaker question today, and we'd love for you to answer it over in our Facebook group, The Sewcial Sewist. What was your first sewing machine, and do you still have it? Audra?
I do. And I actually pulled it out of the closet.
I watched her pull it out of the closet.
Bethany watched me pull it out of the closet. It is my I'm going to try to lift this thing. It weighs like 5 billion pounds.
If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. It is my grandmother's Singer.
It's so pretty.
It is a Singer Merit 1872.
That's not the year it was made. That is just the model number.
Seriously, if someone like broke into the house, I should use this as a weapon. It is so heavy, but it was a great machine. I sewed on this machine until 15 years ago, and then I upgraded. So I mean, that got me through my first couple decades of sewing.
I know and you can't get rid of it. It's a keepsake. Mm-mm. It's a classic.
I bet if I threaded it today, it would fire right up and run like a champ.
Honestly, challenge, please. Like, I need a video of that. I still have the machine that my mom passed down to me, which was a baby lock mechanical machine, also a brick. I can't find it for the life of me. It is in my attic. I know that much, which is shame on me. That's not where you put stuff like that.
I also saw her searching for it in her attic.
For the record, y'all, it is like 1,000 degrees in my attic because it is the dead of summer and it's been over 100 degrees every day this week. So points for trying. I came out of that attic dripping in sweat without the machine. So it's back in the corner somewhere. And yeah, I just couldn't be up there any longer. But I sewed with that for a long time. And then I started that bandana business for the pet boutique. And that's what I started on. And shortly after I started that business, my mom bought me for my birthday $200 brother machine that was computerized from Costco. And that is what got me through 4 years of bandana business. And just having going from that big, heavy, clunky, loud mechanical machine to a $200 brother. It was just night and day, and it was so much quieter and easier and just more efficient. And it's smoother. So yeah, I used that for the longest time until I started working in the industry, and I've been I have all types of machines now, but I still have it. It's somewhere. I know exactly what the bag looks like that it's in. It still says baby lock on the outside of this black tote that it sits in, but I don't remember the first machine I sewed on because it was my mom's, and I don't have that. I think she still has it. But we would love to hear what your first machine was that you sewed on. Post a picture over in our Sewcial Sewist Facebook group. Ask to join. It's a private group where our listeners can come and continue the conversation after the podcast. And I have a feeling you guys are going to have some questions after this episode, so please go over and leave them in the chat there as well. We're going to jump right into why choosing the right machine really matters. We're going to kick off with that because this is an investment in your hobby. We understand that sewing machines, even a $200 machine, can be not a cheap purchase for some people. Like $200 for me when I was starting my business was a lot, and I was grateful that that was my birthday present because I didn't have $200 to spend on a sewing machine. And so we understand like you're making an investment. So this episode is going to be talking about all of your options so you can decide how to maybe get the most bang for your buck, and also like how to take care of your investment. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but some of the sewing machine terms I kind of want to break down for you all that you're going to hear in this podcast in case you're not familiar is domestic. A domestic machine would be like the one behind me that if you're watching the YouTube video, like my $200 brother machine that I got from Costco, like those are like a domestic single needle sewing machine. You can also have a domestic sewing machine that doubles as like an embroidery machine. And that is a domestic. It's a home hobby, home use machine. There's also industrial machines. There's also semi-industrial machines as well. There's long arm machines specifically made for quilting. And there's different types of long arm machines for like tabletop ones and then like the ones that come on the big frames. And then there's also things like multi-needle machines. This is going to be like your multi-needle embroidery machines and things like that. Then there's a difference with, and this kind of applies to when we're talking about domestic machines, mechanical and computerized. Mechanical is going to have the knobs that you turn to select your stitches and, dials to make adjustments to your stitches and what you're doing. Computerized is going to be more button features. It have at least a little digital screen or some has some sort of computerized mechanism in it to help select stitches and things. So domestic machines can be mechanical and computerized. Other machines can also be mechanical or computerized as well, and we can kind of get into that a little bit today. But just know that's a kind of a variable when we're talking about a domestic sewing machine. That is also a difference between two different types. And honestly, the price range from these can range from $100 to tens of thousands of dollars. When we talk about sewing machines, just know that we're speaking in broad terms.
And it's not always about buying the highest price point, or it's really about what you need for your purposes. So you mentioned your brother, not a big shock because we're the same in a lot of ways. What was my next machine? My next machine was also a $200 brother, which I've had for 15 plus years. It's a basic computerized machine, not fancy. It's just got like a handful of computerized stitches, but I pulled that out for my mom to take on our sewing retreat. It has been in a box for the last 6 years since we moved. Pulled it out, threaded it up, and it ran like a champ. You can get a lot of quality product for a not so high price point. And sometimes too, and we see this I think with cars these days as well, the more fancy, the more bells and whistles, the more computerized, it also has a higher level of care and also might get a little twitchier than some of our nice basic mechanical machines where you turn a knob, set the stitch, and you're off to the races.
Yeah. I agree, but I kind of disagree on that. I actually find computerized machines beginner friendly than people would think. Sometimes I think people think the less buttons, the better. And in theory, that's kind of the rule of thumb. But I couldn't tell you how many times, like in sewing club, we've got quite a few people in our sewing club that have like a mechanical Singer heavy duty machine. Mine is computerized. They have a mechanical one, and they'll be like, I have lifted my feed dogs. I don't know why they're not coming up. Da 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 da. Like it's not feeding and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, when you had your feed dogs down, you also had your stitch length at 0, and when you do that, nothing's feeding because you're telling it you're not stitching through the fabric. And so you have to like mentally know that you have to change all these things. And so there's some like ease of use to for those defaults and taking some of the guesswork out. I think a mechanical machine is a great way to learn how to use the sewing machine. But if you really struggle with some of that stuff, a computerized machine can be a great option to take some of that guesswork out. I also find that, there's less parts involved with a mechanical machine, but they do tend to run a little rougher and a little clunkier and a little louder versus a computerized machine. Let's talk about buying basics, right? Like how, like the right best practices or the right options that are out there to figure out the best place to get a sewing machine.
Yeah, so we're going to break it down into 4 categories. And it's a really, we're trying to simplify how you look at things. So there's the new category, the brand new out of the box machines. A lot of times we'll get these directly from either a big box retailer, if that's the route you're going, or a local quilt shop that is a dealer for certain brands. And so those are really right out of the gate. They've got a warranty. They have really the fanciest features usually in the market at that time. And you really have a dealer to support you if you're buying it from a local quilt shop that is a specific brand dealer.
I actually
Then,
really like working with a dealer because a lot of times you're getting to sit down and go through the lineup of all the machines that are available with that brand and kind of get an idea. Like when you first start shopping, that is the best way to get an idea of one, budget, because I think a lot of people don't realize how expensive sewing machines can get. And two, like what are those features that you can or cannot live without? And if there's features that you cannot live without for what you want to do, and you know you want those things, but maybe it's a little out of your budget, like then you can go back and go, how do I try to find this in a cheaper manner? Can I trade something? Like there's a lot of options, right? But it at least gives you a starting point. We're not impulse buying sewing machines.
yeah.
I just want to say that out there. But dealer support can also mean like, are they working in service, like an annual service into your purchase? Do they offer a trade-in policy? So like if you want to upgrade later, can you trade in your current machine for extra value? So there's a lot of variables there. So going in and having a conversation with your dealer, but can I just say that when you go into a dealership and you don't have like a good experience, find another dealership.
Yeah.
Don't settle because that's you're building a relationship. This isn't a short transaction. This is a relationship with them. And so make sure you have a really good experience with the dealership that you are working with.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of those other nuances a little bit later when we talk about service. But also on the new aspect, they might also offer free classes on your machine. So either free classes on the machine itself, or maybe like when my mom bought her embroidery machine, they offered free embroidery classes that she could take to improve her embroidery experience. So
Because
that's
at the
also
end of the
another.
day, they want you to be successful. They want you to enjoy it. They want you to use it, right? They want you to have a good experience with them. So I love that they offer classes. You're not going to get that from a box store.
Yeah, exactly.
So, just a difference.
Another category would be that dealer trade-in or a freshly refurbed category. You see this a lot in electronics too. You've got something that was traded in, they refurbed it, they went through it, made sure it's running right, and now they're reselling it. So there's usually a slightly discounted price. So we'll call that like the new-ish category. The other category would be used. And used you might find directly from a retailer, but most of the times you're going to find used on Facebook Marketplace. You might hear from a guild friend that someone's selling. You might hear through a friend of a friend that someone is selling. The thing with what?
A yard sale.
Yeah, you might get a yard
know.
sale. You might get a thrift shop. But the key with used is, does it have all the parts? Do you know if it's been serviced? I know my mom recently got a Singer 301A directly from a service tech. So she knew it had been gone through with a fine tooth comb. She knew it ran right. And she also knew she had support if it started to not run right. So then I started looking for a Singer 301A and I found one on Facebook Marketplace. So I reached out and asked, when's the last time it had its annual spa date or was serviced? Does it have parts? Does it have everything with it? And the answers were, I don't know. I'm selling it for a friend. I'm not sure if it's ever been serviced. And then I wave off and go, okay, thank you for your time. Because I don't want to invest money in a machine, at least a higher value into a machine, if I don't know if it even works. So then there's that used category. Then the final category is vintage. And those are where we see all these beautiful Singer featherweights, et ceteras, that are just stunning machines. A lot of the times we have them, we might use them, we might not use them regularly. It might be more for decoration.
You guys never see it in the video, but there's a whole shelf above me with a bunch of vintage machines. And I would say there might be one or two that if I plug in could probably run, but I've been too scared to plug them in. But the other ones are missing some parts, obviously, and need some love. They're just happy pieces that make me happy, and I just like looking at them.
I've got a vintage FAF 32 that I took in and it's been refurbed and it runs great. but I'm still scared to sew on it. I think I like treasure it so much. I'm like scared to use it. I got to get over that.
I have two identical matching featherweights, Singer featherweights, and neither one of them have all their parts. But I think between the two, collectively, they have all the parts that they need to make one whole machine. So I'm trying to decide, do I like send them in and say, can you take these two to make it into one? And then any extra parts like you can use on other machines that need those? Or can you refurb these two? Would it be easier just to refurb both of them separately? And then I have two machines. And I want them, one of them restored to like the original color and then the other one painted in a fun color. I have both and I don't know. It's expensive to refurbish them. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go down that rabbit hole right now. They sit in my cabinets, one on each side, and I just look at them. But they are fun machines to sew on. I have a friend that brings one to sewing club every time she comes, and they're just so sweet and they're so cute, but they're little workhorses.
What tips do you have, Bethany, for buying?
My number one tip is if you can try to sew on it before you purchase it, that's the route to go. One thing I've noticed is every machine has a slightly different sound. Even if you're looking at two machines side by side that are brand new out of the box, they all have their own little quirks. So they all have their own sounds. You kind of learn your machine sounds over the years that you use it. And that way you kind of know like when something sounds off. It's like having a child and you hear like you're in a room full of kids and one of them starts crying. You just know which one is yours because you recognize their cry. It's like kind of the same. I know that's a weird analogy, but it's kind of the same concept. So definitely test drive it. If it sounds off or it's running a little rough, or it, even if you're buying used, if you get to the meetup and you're looking at it and you're like, this thing hasn't even been wiped down and I can see the fuzz coming out of the bobbin casing, I wouldn't do it. Purchase at your own risk. Like Audra said, asking about the last service date. Service is key. Making sure that it has all of the accessories that come with it. So if you're purchasing used, especially off Facebook Marketplace, sometimes those accessories were kept with the machine and sometimes they weren't, and sometimes they were lost in over the time period. Pulling up the original version of that machine, usually you can find it online and see what came with it. You can kind of go through that checklist of does it have these 5 accessory feet that come with it or whatever it was. Some of the little things that come with machines, like the spool caps and things like that, those are easily replaced. But accessory feet, especially an older machine, you may not be able to find again very easily. So making sure it comes with it, making sure it comes with the correct power cord and foot control is really important as well. So definitely, if you're meeting up to purchase a machine, make sure it's somewhere that you can plug it in, turn it on, and don't expect them to bring fabric and thread and a needle. You need to bring your own if you want to properly test it, because they probably aren't, like Audra said, not the person actually having used it. It could be someone who, they're cleaning out a house, it's an estate sale or something, and they're trying to get rid of it. And other than that, like I agree, taking a machine for a test run at a dealership, or if you're going to take a class. So sometimes you can take a class where they provide the machines. That's a great way to test drive some machines, especially if it's specific to a type of niche like embroidery or a bag making or an industrial machine. Like taking a class, that is how you're going to get comfortable with the machine and go, do I feel comfortable with this after one class? So those would be some of my best tips, but we're not, like I said, try not to impulse buy a machine. I've done it and I ended up selling that machine later because it wasn't the right machine for me.
Yeah, and ultimately that class setting where I took a class with the machine, that actually was a scenario where I thought I was going to get a machine, and that is the reason I didn't buy the machine, because I took the class and I was breaking needles, everybody in the class was breaking needles. And so at first I thought it was me, and I'm like, well, no, if everybody in the class is breaking needles, it's not me. And I just didn't love the machine. So I walked into that classroom setting thinking like, oh, this is going to be great because this is the machine I'm going to get. And I walked out there going, nope, back to square one because this is not the machine I'm going to get.
I agree. And, I did this side-by-side comparison. So some dealerships will offer multiple brands. So you can go, I know I want X brand, and I've done my research, and this is the brand I want, this is the brand my friends have, and this is the brand that my favorite influencer sews with, and I think this is the brand I need. And you go in there with that kind of like closed-minded mindset, and then they may have 2 or 3 other brands available at this dealership besides X brand, and they say, hey, I can absolutely show you this machine, but I also want to show you a comparable machine to this one in these other 1 or 2 brands. so that you can make sure you're making the best decision for yourself. Ask for that if they're not offering that. That's how you're going to make the best decision for yourself, because just because someone online is using that in the tutorials you watch doesn't mean it's the right machine for you. One of the best things I did was when I worked at SVP, which is Singer, Viking, and Pfaff. We had two of the top of the line machines for Viking and Pfaff sitting side by side. And I knew I wanted to get one. I worked for the company, so obviously I got an employee discount. I did not pay full I always I don't know why I feel the need to say that, but they're not inexpensive machines. And I know for a fact that I probably wouldn't have it had I not worked for the company. But my boss sat me down. She set up both machines down in the training room. And I was like, I need to make a decision. And she said, okay. And she's like, I think you're going to be a Viking person. Okay, cool. I'll sit at both, but she wanted me to sit down in front of both. And I sat in front of both, and they're very similar machines and what their features and benefits are. They both do sewing and embroidery. They both have this big touchscreen on the side, and they can do all these fancy things. And ultimately, I ended up picking the Pfaff. And she was shocked by that. And I said, honestly, it was not how the machines sew. It was the interface on the touchscreen. I did not like the Viking one. I liked the Pfaff one, but there's a lot of people that like the Viking one. Since then, in their newer Viking version, they've changed the interface to be more aligned with the Pfaff line. But she thought I was going to pick the Viking. And I think she kind of thought that because I picked the Viking serger, but over the Pfaff serger. So now I have a Pfaff machine. I have a Viking machine. I am okay with mixing brands. I don't need my machines to be matchy-matchy. I just need them to have the features and be comfortable to use, because at the end of the day, that's what really matters. You just need to sit down and take the time to test drive them and see what works for you. And that's truly the best thing you can do for yourself. And it's the number one thing I tell people when they start looking for a machine. Now, if you're looking for a machine that's not in a dealership, we're going to go through some things in the next few segments about different uses for machines, and also different features that we personally feel like we can't live without, but also features that we feel like we could have lived without but are nice to have. And maybe you can kind of start thinking about these and making your own checklist and start writing these down. So testing a machine in a dealership can also help you make that checklist as well. Let's talk real quick about how to choose a right machine by matching the features to the style or type of sewing that you're doing. And we're going to break this down in a few different categories. The first one is garment sewing. Obviously, you're going to want a machine that can do buttonholes, has stretch stitches, different types of stretch stitches, not just a zigzag, some different types of stretch stitches. A free arm, that means you can take that little piece off the machine that usually houses your accessories, so you have like a free arm to be able to do cuffs and things. Speed control, I feel like, is really important. You're not going to find that on a mechanical machine, but when you are sewing with garments, to be able to, especially when you're new, to be able to control your speed is going to be helpful. And then there's a whole conversation about sergers and cover stitches that we're not going to dive into today. But if you need help with figuring out the difference between a serger and a cover stitch and what you should get, please feel free to DM me. I literally have those conversations every week with people in my DMs. I'm not joking. And I love helping people with this. But garment sewing, you're definitely going to want to look for certain things. And when you go and sit down at these dealerships and take these machines for a test drive, let them know. They should be asking you, but let them know, like, this is the kind of sewing I want to do. Or this is the kind of sewing I currently do, but I'm wanting to get into this. That's why I'm looking at a new machine. Quilting, you're definitely going to want to look for a machine that has a bigger throat space. That's that space to the right of the needle bar, between the needle bar and the control panel or all the buttons or dials. That's going to give you enough room to decide how big of a quilt you can quilt. Walking foot definitely is super helpful. If it doesn't come with one, is there one available that's compatible for it? 1/4 inch piecing foot. If you're buying a machine that's specifically for quilting and it's sold as a quilting machine, obviously it's just a sewing machine, but they usually throw in extra features specific to quilting, and there should be 1/4 inch foot with that. If there's not, there should be. Bag making can vary. You can use a lot of different machines for bag making, but it really kind of comes down to the type of material you want to sew your bags with. If you're just doing some quilted bags, you can usually get away with a domestic machine for the most part. But if you're wanting to get into something heavier, working with heavier materials or vinyls or anything like that, you're going to need a stronger machine. So a semi-industrial or an industrial machine is a good way to go, because you need something that has more motor strength. That motor strength is what's giving you not just weight to the machine to be more stable while you're sewing those heavier materials, but also have a stronger piercing power to go through that heavy material. You're also going to have a different type of needle with industrial machines. That's going to be a little stronger to handle those. Having a machine that can adjust the presser foot pressure, that pressure can help or determine your ability to feed thicker materials through the machine. If you can't loosen that, it can be challenging. So having a machine that has the ability to adjust that is important. The last one is going to be embroidery. You can get a standalone embroidery machine. Most embroidery machines these days are a combo between sewing and embroidery, and you can kind of go between the two. Most these days have a USB port to be able to upload designs to them. Some, like my FOF, are Wi-Fi enabled, so I can just over the Wi-Fi, you like my little hand motions over the you know what it makes me think of is that scene in Willy Wonka where they minimize the chocolate bar and it goes in the sky above them and all the little pieces, and then it shows up on the little TV. Like, that's how I envision my embroidery designs going from my computer to my sewing machine. It's like my favorite movie, by the way. Fun fact. Digitizing software for embroidery is a big part of that, but it's not necessary. You can do embroidery without a software by purchasing designs. One of the key things I always tell people to look at when they're looking into getting embroidery is what's the biggest hoop size that you can do with that machine. There's some great entry-level embroidery machines out there, but the hoops are only like this big. You're monogramming something pretty small with that. And then you can get to like my machine that has hoops big enough that I could hula hoop with them. I'm not joking. They're so big. I never use the biggest one. Included designs and fonts with embroidery machines is a big thing. Does it include pre-design? Sometimes the pre-made designs are but the fonts are the things that you typically will use on that are built into the embroidery machine. So check those out. Like I said, if you can get a 2-for-1, you kind of get a bundled deal there. You can leave it set up for embroidery if you already have a sewing machine, but if you wanted to take that on the go, you could sew and embroider with just the one machine. I kind of wanted to give a little bit of a breakdown. Audra, what do you think?
I think those are such great categories. And then ultimately, I think there's a lot of people like you and me. And when I say a lot of people like you and me, I mean people that are equal opportunity offenders of all things fabric. We quilt, we make bags, we make clothes, you embroider. I'm not there yet. But we do a little bit of everything depending on what our creative mood is, what our fabric is inspired by. I know for you, it's the season a lot of times. Then when you're at that point, you really have to go, okay, what can help me do a little bit of everything? And a lot of the machines out there in the market will help you do a little bit of everything. And you will have to understand, you might have to compromise in a couple areas and know that, like, okay, this doesn't have 50 buttonhole options, but it has 10, and that's all I need. Look for the things that serve most of your sewing, and you'll be fine. When I bought my machine 7 years ago, it has everything I need. Not once have I ever said, oh, I wish it has this. It's a FOF Performance 5.2. It serves me great. I absolutely love it.
I do love my FOFs.
Yep, we do love our FOFs.
We're not showing favoritism at all. I'm just saying, like, I have one, she has one. It's just coincidence.
It is a coincidence.
But I have just names. I mean, I mentioned my Viking. You have a singer. Your mom's singer. You have a brother. I have 2 brothers. I have several singers. I have
my serger's a baby lock.
Yeah, I have my old baby lock. I have a Necky behind me. I have a Cellrite as my industrial. I mean, yeah. I mean, we have a little bit. I also have a basic Burnett that I'll use also when I take when I'm teaching, just so I don't have to take the big machine with me everywhere. So when we say we are brand agnostic, we mean it. It's really what works best for us. Yeah. But the thing for me isn't necessarily the brand, it's the features. I personally have a couple of must-have features. Yeah. So I added a few in your list. I don't know if you... Oh, you added another one.
I did. It's my favorite. I can't live it.
I could have added a lot more of favorite features on here, but I didn't. I wanted to keep it to things that kind of apply to most entry-level machines. But when you get to like the machine like my FOF, there's definitely features on that machine that I'm like, oh, chef's kiss. It's so good.
Yeah. Well, and again, these are some of our favorites.
Yes.
And our nice to like our favorites and our nice to haves. Those are ours. It doesn't mean it's yours.
We would love to hear yours. I mean, please share them in the Sewcial Sewist Facebook group, because there may be a favorite of yours that I'm not even thinking of, and I'm like, oh, that is, you know what? That is That is low-key underrated, and we should call that one out more often. So, Audra,
Yeah.
let's go through some of our favorites, and we'll talk about them.
So, some of our favorites, and this patent, I believe, and you should correct me, has just expired. So now it will be seen, it is being seen
It is
across the
included in other
industry.
machines now, yeah.
Yeah. So when I first bought my FOF, they had the patent on the IDT system. It's a built-in walking foot. It's a dual feed that'll pull from the top and the bottom. So when you're doing bags or you're doing garment sewing or making something slippery, it's fantastic. And so that was a real big selling feature when I bought my FOF. Now that patent has expired. So you're seeing it all across the industry.
So
But that dual feed is so huge.
the IDT system is an integrated dual feed system. IDT. I don't technology. I don't know the exact abbreviation for it, but it started on the FOF. My FOF has it too. My mom has a FOF. They've even incorporated it into like the more entry level FOF machines at the lower price points. And so even her travel machines, she's like, I won't go below this because I have to have the IDT with piecing because she does all this quilting. So it's basically a little attachment that drops down behind the foot, and it works with different feet attachments and different stitches on the machine. My machine pops up and lets me know like, hey, it's recommended for that stitch. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I need to drop that down. It's easy to put up and down. So you're not having to attach a walking foot. There is no walking foot. It is built in. So it's really nice. Then they came out with it on the Viking version because they're sister brands owned by the same company. And that was called IDF. So they had to name it a little different, but it's IDF. And now that that patent has expired, like Audra said, you're going to start seeing it on other brands. And it is so nice. So anytime I go to work with any of my other machines that don't have that, I'm like, oh, I got to attach a walking foot. You get spoiled. Let's be honest. Some of these bells and whistles, you definitely get spoiled. What's another one? Automatic needle threader. Even if it's the little one that's a manual one, like on my Necky or on my Singers, the drop down where you do it yourself, if you do not know how to use the automatic needle threader on your machine, you are missing out and you need to go learn how to use it. There's probably a YouTube video on it, or you can send me a message and I'll help you with it. I've shown so many people like a sewing club when they're like, hey, I can't figure this out. And I look at their machine and then I go to rethread it and I use their automatic needle threader. They're like, I didn't even know that was there. And it'll save your life and so much time. Get to know your automatic needle threader. Be gentle with it. Those little prongs on the end that go around the needle are very sensitive. So don't force it. If you've been one of those, it's kind of like really hard to get it corrected. Automatic needle threader is a best friend. My FOF, just push a button. It's super nice. And I think I even put a little video of me on my Instagram one time of it. I just hit the button and it makes the most satisfying sound. The second one that I put on here was speed control. Speed control, I think, is a beginner's best friend. When it comes to sewing. This is also why I kind of encourage people to start with a computer, even like an entry level computerized machine, because you'll get that speed control. It's like a little bar. It's usually on the front of the machine. Mine on my FOF is like on the side. You'll see them in different places. Some of them are digital. It allows you to slow down the speed of the machine so it can't go faster than a certain point. So no matter how hard you push your foot, it won't go past a certain point in speed. I live with mine on the full speed. I am a pedal to the metal. I sew like I drive. I drive kind of fast. I'll just admit it. But that's just who I am. I've always been that way. I've always sewn really fast. You can attest to like people in sewing club or retreats that I've gone to. They're like, holy cow, you sew so fast. But the faster I sew, the straighter my line. When I do slow down my FOF, it's when I'm doing embroidery, because I'm doing a lot of delicate stitching and I don't want my threads to break. And so I typically will slow it down for that. So there's different times that I will slow it down. When you first get started, it's hard to control that foot control on the floor while you're also paying attention to where you're stitching. So to be able to control the speed a little bit so it doesn't get away from you, speed control can be your best friend.
I don't know if you noticed, I was over here like looking at my machine because I've never used speed control once in any of my years of sewing. So like,
what
this
is
is
your
where
set to?
I have no idea. It's as fast as my foot goes, which like you is pretty fast. So I'm gonna have to like turn my machine on when we're done and check, because I have never used speed control.
What's the last feature that you feel like we can't live without? And this is for us personally, and I have to agree with this one.
The low warning bobbin alert. When my mom and I were at the swing retreat, I brought my FOF, which has an alert when your bobbin is getting low. The way the bobbin is designed is it loads in a way that once it gets to a certain point, it'll tell the machine that you only have a little bit of bobbin left. And then I still continue to play bob and chicken. It's not like it doesn't
Oh,
stop me.
I've
But
learned how much further I can go. It's like running your car down to E and like having just a few
a
more
few more
miles
miles.
till you can
Well,
coast in.
and it's in mine too. If I'm using the right fabric or right thread color, I can see how much is left and I kind of know. And so it works. The being warned that your bobbin is getting low is the best thing ever. So when we were at the retreat, my mom again had the brother, and we were sewing and sewing and sewing. And I was like, "Ooh, mom, you might want to check that every now and then because she has the same machine I do." So I'm like, I don't want her sewing and like running out of bobbin and not realizing it because we're all so used to just being like a machine going, warning, bobbin low. And then I hit the checkbox and I go, I know, leave me alone. Keep sewing. I know it's low, leave me alone. I know. And I just keep going.
Mine will if I so it stops me. It stops the sewing. Like you can't keep sewing when it first pops up. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. If I clear it out and I start to sew again, it'll stop sewing and pop up again. If I leave it on, leave the alert up, it'll let me continue to sew. And then I'll redo my bobbin and clear the setting. Oh, I just sewed like so much with no bobbin and I didn't even realize it. And then you're like,
No. Well, that's why I told my mom, like we're both just jamming along. We're like 12 hours into sewing. And I was like, ooh, mom, you need to check that bobbin and make sure you don't run out. Because she was doing a ton of piecing. And I was like, I would be heartbroken if she did like all this piecing and find out a third of the way through she like ran out of bobbin.
yeah, bobbin and warning alerts is nice. So ask for that. When you go to test drive, does this machine tell me when I'm running out of bobbin? Because that may not be a special feature to the person talking to you about the machine, but if it's important to you, that's a good question to ask. Here's some of our fun, but not necessarily essential. And I'm going to say this first one, I would easily bump up to a must have for me. I'm going to put it down here as a non essential because of what it is. The scissor snip button. The scissor snip button on a machine, on a computerized machine, if it has it, when you get done sewing, you tap that and it trims your thread and it pulls your top thread to the back. So if you needed to tie it off or something or have all your threads to the back, it's really, really nice. And it just trims them nice and short. You're not wasting thread by pulling it and out and going over the side thing on the machine or finding your scissors and yes, there's other options to snip your threads. So is it a necessary? No. But once you go scissor snip, you can't go back. And now for me, like I just know, and this is my personal checklist, if I ever purchase another computerized machine in the future, if it does not have a scissor snip button, I don't want it. I don't want it. Because I have a couple machines that don't have it. And you know what I do when I use those machines? I tap the invisible button that should be there. And it's not.
It's now,
And I'm like, snip my scissors. It also
it's,
makes it a little faster too.
yeah, it's that
I
muscle
find it more
memory.
efficient. It is. I literally have a spot on one of my machines where you can clearly see that I've tried to hit that invisible button because I had two machines that were very similar when I worked for Singer, and one had that and the other one did different versions of the same machine, and one had it, one didn't. But at the end of the day, you just get so used to that feature that for me personally, it's a must-have. I kind of wish my industrial had it, but it's an industrial, so it doesn't.
It's funny, mine does have it, and I stopped using it because it just would get bogged down on me every now and then, and I'm like, forget this, I'm over it. And so I still go old school. I still pull it out and snip, and again, personal preference.
You need to have that looked at.
I know. Well, it's going in for its spa date here. I'm actually going to call today and schedule its annual spa date. That's what I call when my machine goes in every year. It's annual spa date.
What's some of the other, like, so for me, the second one that I put on here was needle up down. I think this is really helpful, especially with piecing, even bag making and crafting. I love the needle up down button. I have it on some machines where I push it and it just leaves the needle down, but it doesn't engage it to always do that when I stop sewing. So it's nice, but it's not fully functional. Then I have machines where if I engage that button, every time I stop sewing, it stops with the needle down. And that's always really nice, especially when you're sewing around curves or doing applique. Like, needle up down button is your friend. So if you're looking at a computerized machine, usually they have that button, but how fully engaged is it is another thing you need to figure out. You'll usually end up with a needle up down button before a scissor snip button. That would be like a next step up, just from experience. Now you put this one on here.
Lots of decorative stitches and lettering fonts. They're fun and nice to have, but they're just that. You don't need them, especially as a beginner sewist, and frankly, even for myself as a fairly established sewist, I use them rarely. So ultimately, it's what you need. For me, it would be a straight stitch, a zigzag stitch, a couple garment focus stitches, buttonholes. But ultimately, like there's a cute like little like turtle embroidery thing on my machine. I'm not using the cute turtles. I'm just not.
Missed opportunity, Audra.
I know. I don't know. I'm not putting turtles on my stuff. I
It's,
mean, some people would, but it's
exactly.
just,
But don't let all of those extra stitches be a selling point for the salesperson that's talking to you about the machine.
right.
Be like, but this one comes with 385 stitches, and I'm like,
Look, you can do
okay,
turtles
but
and
like this one
stars.
has all the things I need, and I don't.
Yeah.
It's okay that it doesn't have 385 stitches and it has 255 stitches. Like that's fine. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna get extra stitches with a computerized machine regardless. So loads of accessories. This is one that I put in here. I think you have to keep in mind the value of the accessories. So if they're like, oh, it comes with 20 different accessories. Okay, well, are 3 of those spool caps? Because I don't need another spool cap. If it's accessory feet that I'll use, like it includes a walking foot, it includes a 1/4 inch foot, it includes a rolled hem foot, it includes a bi-level foot, it includes like all these other accessory feet. Yeah, that has value. But if it's like it includes a seam ripper that's this big, like that's not really an accessory that I feel. It includes a screwdriver. It should. That should
Yeah.
not be counted as an accessory. So to me, I think when they try to upsell accessories, just make sure it's value added accessories, not things that you could live without.
Yeah. And that
Like we said
piggybacks on our bundling conversation, I think,
yeah.
from the last episode before. Like, just because it's a bundle doesn't mean it's a great deal.
You know what's a good accessory that people forget about? An extension table.
Yeah. Extension table is
Extension
huge.
tables.
Hmm.
If there's a machine that comes with an extension table, I love that because
Yeah.
then I know I can use that. And I typically leave my extension tables on even when I'm not quilting because I just like to have the extra flat table space to hold up and support my project no matter what it is. So extension tables, don't sleep on those. And if your machine isn't compatible with an extension table, but you know you want to do quilting with other types of sewing with it, then you might need to look at a different machine. So extension tables are a plus. Let's talk about tech and service real quick, and we'll kind of wrap up. You guys know where I stand on this. If you've ever listened to this podcast before, followed me for any length of time, you know that your machine is only as good as how well you take care of it. And I always use the analogy of a car. When you buy a car, it has a motor, it has tires, it has belts, it has things that need to be serviced. And we get oil changes and we take care of it as we should because it was an investment and we need that car to run for a long time. Same with your sewing machine. There is a motor inside. I know you can't see it, but it's there. There's belts that help turn that wheel, that hand wheel. There's a whole belt that goes on that side. So when you're purchasing like an older machine, those belts can dry rot, just like belts in cars can get torn up. Take care of it. And this is where Audra and I say service is so important. If you are sewing on a regular basis, like Audra and I sew all the time, like we should be servicing our machine at least once a year, sometimes twice, depending on if you're running a small business and making a lot of stuff with it for, vendor fairs and stuff, probably twice a year, because that's an investment in your business. Okay. That's a tax write-off your service. Okay. Take care of it, get it serviced. It's super, super, super important.
Finding a qualified service tech that you can lean on and know is trustworthy. When I bought my FOF, I take my FOF to the dealer that I bought it from every year. And like my serger is actually in for its annual spa date right now, and I'll be calling today to schedule an annual spa date for my main machine. And what I try to do is schedule those times for when like maybe I'm going out of town or I know I have downtime sewing, so I don't like lose momentum or I feel like lost without my machine because it's kind of like my right arm.
Yeah.
But having someone you can depend on that is knowledgeable, whether it's an in-home servicing or the dealer you bought your machine from, or maybe you've relocated, just maybe asking the local quilt shop, hey, do you have a service dealer that you recommend or a tech that you recommend that can help take care of my machines?
This is why it's so important. Sorry. This is why it's so important to have, as I mentioned before, make sure you have a good relationship with the dealership that you're purchasing from. If you do not have a good experience with the sales process, you're probably not going to have a good experience with the service process.
Yeah.
And so just keep that in mind, that if you walk in the door and they're not friendly, that they're probably not the place for you to be, and you need to find another home. Okay. And if you move, you can find other dealers. Just make sure that they're certified in the brand of machine that you have, because not all machines are made the same. And when you get to higher level machines and top of the line machines, they have to be certified to service those machines, because there are so many bells and whistles and components in those machines. And you don't want someone who's not certified in that brand to touch your top of the line machine, for example, like my Foth. So
Yeah, and the other end of that too is, just because you have an entry level machine, maybe you got it at Walmart, maybe you got it at Costco, maybe you got it at Joann before they departed, doesn't mean it doesn't deserve the same level of service that your top of the line machine does. So if you're listening to us saying like, oh, well, I just got it at a big box store, it still needs to be cared for. And you can still go to your local quilt shop or ask a friend or ask a local sewing friend, hey, where do you take your machine to be serviced? Because that $150 brother needs to be serviced just as much as that $25,000 baby lock. So all of those need the love and care that you would give your car. I have a couple other things. And Bethany's talked about this before. We've talked about in other episodes, a couple of things. Change your needle. Either every project or every 8 to 10 hours of sewing. I religiously change mine every project. And if you hear a thunk, 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 thunk sound, that is your machine saying, please change my needle, because your needle is dull and it is thumping through the fabric. Also, don't ever clean your machine with canned air. When you pull out your bobbin case, take the brush, clean it out. Ultimately, canned air has moisture, and you do not want to blow moisture into your machine. Nothing will end well. Your tech won't like you. You will be very unhappy that you damaged your machine. Just don't do it.
Canned air is really bad for you to breathe in, and it's impossible to not to when you're using it. Two, yeah, when you blow that air into your bobbin area, you're going to see a lot of stuff fly out, but you're not seeing all the stuff that's getting pushed back further into your machine that you cannot access. And that is what that service guy is going to be able to get to. The more you push in that you don't even realize you're doing, the more it gets into your motor, into those belts, into those mechanisms, and you're going to have major issues. Do not use canned air. It's not healthy for you. It's not safe for your machine. Don't even use it on your keyboard. That should have never been a trend. Every time I see someone promote that, it drives me nuts, because it's so bad for you, even just for your lungs. So please don't use it. I have a whole video on how to clean your machine on my YouTube channel if you want to go check that out. I walk you through how to use the right brushes. You can get some inexpensive ones off of Amazon. You can even get like a little mini vacuum off Amazon that I like to use to help bring the stuff out, not blow it in. Wipe them down, keep them clean. I think I clean out my bobbin casing after every project. I try to do it often. So if you don't know how to take not just the bobbin out, but the bobbin casing out, you need to do that to get down in there. Definitely check on that regularly. Yeah. But
I have one final tip before we roll into Stitch and Share, and then I'll just roll right into it, is if you've got something going on with your machine that's not like a deal breaker, but it's something that's kind of bugging you, make sure you keep kind of a list going so that when you do take it in for service, you don't forget to mention it, because you really don't want to go in and have a really nice service on your machine and pay for the service on your machine and then forget that you didn't mention the thing that needed to be looked at. Like, for example, on mine, one of the screws, it's not a deal breaker, but I think the screw needs to be replaced. I think it's getting a little stripped out, and I don't want to forget to tell them, because I don't want to pick it up and come home and go, oh, son of a biscuit, I just spent like $100 or $125 and I forgot to mention it. And so that's my final tip.
I will say, if you have your machine making weird sounds and noises, take a video of it. Because just like anytime you go anywhere for an issue and all of a sudden it's not an issue when they're looking at it, show them the video. Like, this is what it was doing when I was using it. That, I think showing them that, because they may not be able to replicate that issue themselves. So having that can help them diagnose, especially being able to hear and see. So take a little video. All right.
Well, it's like the car analogy. Like, you take your car in and the car doesn't make the sound that it's been making, right?
But I'm over here going, it's going blip, 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 blip.
Yeah.
They're like,
exactly.
wait, what?
They're like, what?
I don't know.
Okay, so stitch and share. What are you making these days, Bethany?
I'm trying to find my Sewcial again. Just coming off of this big virtual event that I did with work kind of was all consuming. So I hadn't sewed a whole lot. But during the virtual event, Chelsea Porter did a segment on bulk koozies. I mean, I've seen them forever. I've seen them sold at vendor fairs. Like they're everywhere. I've just never made one. And while she was teaching her segment during the thing, I was like, oh, I like that. So I got the right batting, the wrap and zap to that you can microwave. And I got the little templates and they came in and I sat down last night and just whipped one up in like 10 minutes. It was so fast and easy and it was just the little nugget of joy of sewing that I needed to kind of get back on track and get out of the funk of like the post-event hangover. So I made a bowl koozie, however you want to say it, last night. And yes, it's the dead of summer, but I like ice cream and I hate holding a cold bowl. So I'll be using it year round for all hot and cold things. So that's what I made last night, and it's kind of bringing me a little joy, as simple as it is.
It's
How about
perfect.
you, Audra?
We have this new faux leather in at work at Sally Tomato, and it's called White Grape, and it's got a faux basket weave. The white grape is like a bright lime color, and I am obsessed with it. So I am going to be making a little fold over crossbody bag with that, and I am super excited. Got everything picked out yesterday. I'm gonna make it probably this weekend, and I'll probably post pictures because it's
I
just
can't
this
wait to
color.
see.
This color is screaming summer, and it's super exciting for me. So I'm excited to make it.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. That's awesome. So what is your you love to see it to wrap up our episode?
It's summer in Madison, and summer in Madison, like summer in Wisconsin is the best. I will continue to say this, but summer in Madison also means that it's Concerts on the Square, and Concerts on the Square is a free 6-week summer series put on by the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra. And on Wednesday nights, the entire chamber orchestra comes out and they set up in front of the Capitol building, and the entire Capitol lawn is covered in blankets and tables. And guys, the amount of quilts I see is so inspiring. I'm going to find a photo when this episode airs and post it so you guys can see it. But it is the entire Capitol Square of Madison covered in blankets. People have like the most incredible picnics. They've got like little tables and wine and cheeses, and you sit outside in the beautiful summer and listen to the free concert. And it is just one of the gifts that they give to us here in Madison, and I'm so thankful for it.
Oh, that sounds nice. It is too hot to be outside now. It is too hot in the south. My you love to see it is Brock got his first job. So if you've been following along for any length of time here lately, my son is he'll be 19. When is this episode coming out?
August 5th.
Okay, so he just turned 19 at the end of July, but he started his first job at Chick-fil-A in June, and he loves it. He loves it so much, and every once in a while I'll sneak over to grab lunch and see if I can take a peek at him and say hi, but usually he's super busy working because they're so busy all the time. But he loves it, and surprisingly he said that he shockingly is really good at making the ice cream cones because they have to be perfect. They are very particular. Like they have to be perfect or not. Like you have to throw it out. Like they're very particular. And most people really struggle with getting like the perfect swirl on the cone. And he got it on his second time, and they were just all like, "Oh my gosh, Brock's a ice." I was like, "Brock, for as many of those as you've eaten in your lifetime, you should be a pro." So he kind of brags, and then every day he comes home with some other concoction of a milkshake that he's mastered up, putting in way too much chocolate usually and other flavors. He's having the best time, and he's making some good friends, and it's just a good work environment that's very supportive of him and having his first job, and he's doing really good with it. He loves it. That's my you love to see it. It's just my kid thriving and having a good first job experience, because I can say I did not have a good first job experience, so it was really important for me that Brock had a good first job experience. So that's my you love to see it. What do we have going on next week? Who's hanging out with us?
Next week, we have Dee Bushrod, also known as @Pixel Quilt. She is an absolute joy. She's a friend of both of ours, and we are so excited to have her on to talk about her creative process, her incredible quilted clothes, her incredible pixel quilts, and just see where the episode takes us.
Yeah, she's got some fun things coming up that you're not going to want to miss, and I'm so excited to have her on. So we'll see you guys next week. Again, go Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and please join our Sewcial Sewist Facebook group so you can continue the conversation at the end of the podcast. And we will see you next week.
Happy sewing.